The following programming is sponsored by Mark J. Bernstein. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or Beasley Media Group. Entrepreneur, author, and financial consultant Mark Bernstein helps high-performing entrepreneurial business owners create a vision for the future and follow through on their goals and intentions. Ange Honorato is a business growth strategist who blends psychology and business together to create conscious leaders and business owners who impact the world. Founders Forum is a radio show podcast sharing the real stories behind entrepreneurship as founders discover more about themselves while providing valuable lessons and some fun and entertainment for you. Now, here's Mark and Ange.
Good morning, America. How are you? I know that Ange is in the southeast of the country in Florida, as am I, although we're on different coasts of Florida. And our guest today is actually, so it's often us in Philadelphia and our guests are elsewhere. Today, our guest is in Philadelphia and we're elsewhere. So it's a beautiful day in Florida. I hope it's a nice day in Philadelphia as well, Beau. And we'll introduce Beau in a minute. But before we do that, Ange, I know you have a topic on your mind from your work this week that I thought would be a good way to start. So why don't we get into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as an executive coach, I work with high performing leaders, every day. And a topic that keeps coming up is many of them are learning how to pivot or thinking about a second act in their career. And they're grappling with that question of when people say, what do you do? Which is typically followed by, follow your passion. And what I coach them on is really saying, actually, let's think about offering, who do you be? Meaning, what's your origin story? What's your personal core values and beliefs? Because I think when you pursue them, then it's a natural, authentic extension into, your work and the impact that you make. So love to get your thoughts on that, Mark. And I know it's really going to be tapping into our guest today. So I was thinking about that and love your thoughts.
Well, I'll tell you my story real quickly on that. So as you know, I started out as an attorney. And what occurred to me as an unconscious competent at that time is that I didn't really like who I was being as an attorney. It just didn't suit me. Nothing against attorneys, because some of my best friends are attorneys, but it just wasn't me. So I went through a heavy duty search in my late 20s about, what I wanted to do from there. And of course, I had this vision of being a financial planner. It took a while to get that to actually be that and to do things the way I'm doing today because the industry was just evolving. But it just suited me much better. And as I've done a lot of work on myself, I've talked a little bit about this on the show, coaching over the last few years, etc., I really feel like I fully grew into who I want to be in this business. And it's something I see doing forever, even though I'm like typical retirement age, because it's a part of who I am. So it's really, so for me that it's very pertinent what you're saying. I'd like to ask Beau her thoughts on it because I know this works into your story as well, and then I will officially introduce her after that. Good morning, Beau.
Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Egg. I think that's a really good things you brought up. I feel like a life of entrepreneurs, it really meaningless unless you will follow something that you believe in, whether that is a way of doing business or, the business that actually make an impact that they believe in. It's really funny because as we dive into my background, I've been a scientist by training over a decade. And, as I look back in my backgrounds, I believe what really brought me into science is, the nature of problem solving, right? I think being a scientist is like, you try to solve a problem, whether it is to cure a disease or to, bring new technologies to a market. And as I transition into, being entrepreneurs, that's what I do on a daily basis. And I think in the nature of things is my love of solving a problem and working on a problem that make an impact to, everybody around me that keep me going. And I think that's my passion. That's who I am. I'm a problem solver. I'm a solution solver. So, really excited to share more about what I do and, my passion and who I am.
So, Beau, that's a perfect introduction to your introduction. So I appreciate that. So, Beau is Beau Wangtrakuldee,
You got
and
it right,
she is a.
Mark.
I know I practiced that. Wangtrakuldee, I'm getting very good at it. Is a multifaceted innovator who's taken a technical approach to radically drive global impact in health and safety. She's the founder and CEO of AmorSui, the first global protective wear brand for circular personal protective equipment, otherwise known these days as PPE. When you say PPE, everyone knows what we're talking about, items and subscriptions. And she's on a mission to protect the health of people and the planet. Beau led AmorSui to serve over 30,000 global customers and leading R&D institutions such as Harvard, the University of Pennsylvania, the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, DuPont, and Amgen. So, Beau, tell us a little bit about your story, where you come from, how you grew up, what you did prior to founding your company, and we'll ask you some questions along the way. But it's a very interesting story.
Yeah, Mark. So, some people might be able to tell based on my last name that I'm not from here originally. My last name is Wangtrakuldee. I'm originally from Thailand. I grew up there. I lived there for 17 years before, coming here for college. At the time, my dream is to become a world-renowned scientist. And in my household, it's full of entrepreneurs, people who start their own business, people who start their own companies. And at a really early age, I have seen, my grandparents, my parents start their own venture, and I see what it's like for a business that have a mission and purpose. And when they do so well, they could like create a positive impact into community. So I feel like as a young age, I understand that one day I want to have my own venture. I didn't know
I
what it
just want to say,
was.
go ahead. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know
I
what it
just,
was. I don't know
yeah.
what it was, but I have a positive impact on entrepreneurials and, starting a venture of my own.
I think I mentioned this to you, but Ange and I have been involved in a conversation about this. We had a guest on a few months ago, Tina Hamilton, who talked about the entrepreneurialism being in her DNA, and I think we talked about that a little bit. And is it in your DNA, or is it culture, environment, or is it just accidental that people are entrepreneurs? But I think you and I talked about it. It sounds like that was a definite influence on you, even though you didn't start out as an entrepreneur. It ultimately was in your blood or in your environment. It sounds like.
Yeah, well,
Right.
Mark, I know it could be done, and if done well, it could create a positive impact in the community. I feel like that's what I learned in an early
Yep.
age. But I fell in love with chemistry in high school, and throughout all in all, I came to United States to go to the best school to become a scientist. And that took me in the journey of over a decade or more, being in a science in college, going to finish my PhDs, working at, one of the best laboratory in the world and on track to, create my own lab or create my own ventures in biotechnologies. Well, one day when I was on the track to finishing up my PhD, I had a chemical spill accident when I was working alone in the lab one evening. And at the time, I have a lab coat on. I follow all the safety procedure. I have goggles, closed-toe shoes. But my lab coat was such a low quality that the chemical spill just basically go through it, like burn right through it. And my right side of the body, which is completely burned. I was out commissions for a week. It was a scary experience to try to revisit and go back to the lab and think about how could I prevent that from happening again. So of course, my first thought is to look for better products that I could trust on, that I will go back to work with, and feel safer. But what I found is that, the whole medical supply and PPE industry, and I don't just say PPE because medical supply and PPE overall is a big industry. that's not set up to really deliver values to consumer. Majority of, I think, the players in the market are supplier and manufacturer that intention is to sell as many cheap item, low quality item, and sell as many as they can and turn it around as fast as possible. And it's not, in intention to protect the people who's wearing it. So, that it's always on the back of my mind that why is it that there's no product like that? But later on, like I had an opportunity to really revisit, this idea when I came to UPenn after finishing up my PhDs. And I was having conversation with my girlfriends around at lunchtime about different experience in the lab. And it turns out, my accident was not the only one that occurs in the lab. Everyone, I think there was a 10 or 12 of my girlfriends who I had lunch with had some sort of experience one way or the other that's due to either the lab coat that does not fit, like the lab coat that were too big or too small, that caused them to have an accident in the lab. And that's when I really thought that this could be something. And I think that if I don't do something about it, I don't think anyone is going to be able to solve that problem. So there comes, the first iterations of my company, AmorSui. I did talk to over 100 women scientists before I start the business. We create a prototype with a fashion designer who I met here in Philadelphia. And we did a crowdfunding campaign to run the first production. And that was 6 years ago, until we are today. Happy to share more.
By the way, there was some space of some years between your accident and when you actually got
absolutely.
started.
I have an accident in 2013. I sit on the idea until 2015, until I had that lunch with my girlfriend. And between that 2015 and 2018, that was another 3-year gap until I actually started a business. We had this conversation together, Mark and Angie. I like to share the timeline that entrepreneur look different. For myself, even though I have a background, I see, my family as an entrepreneurs. I didn't think that I was going to get in a business of apparel. I didn't think that I was going to be a PPE company. I thought I was on a track to be a scientist. I was going to start a biotech company. And it took some convincing on myself to really go in on this business. But sometimes it's good because, it create validation point along the business that there's people who actually want this product from me to be able to pursue the business full time.
So obviously that was a challenge, convincing yourself since you were a scientist, becoming an entrepreneur. What other challenges did you face in starting the business?
I think, it's really hard, but I'm going to be really transparent. And I feel like I share this in conversation with other entrepreneurs a lot. I feel like the biggest challenge is for me to believe that I can do this.
Wow.
Believe in myself. And because this business has grown leap and bound since we started, unexpectedly and more than I could anticipate for this business. Every time we reach a milestone, I have to be a different person. I have to grow up quite a lot, whether that as a business person, whether that's a leader, whether that is a speaker, communicator. It pushed me to the next stage every time we hit the milestone. And because of that, I struggle to believe in myself every time we hit another milestone because I have to grow with it. And I think that, that's a challenge. And if I can be better with it, I think my business will be better also.
Beau, that's a really interesting point that you bring up. And I hear this from leaders all the time, which is the things that got you here, they're not the same skills or same mindset that get you here to the next level, right?
Absolutely.
But I think what people don't talk about enough is as you're doing that and you're focused on that is with those challenges and a founder, what do you do to keep yourself also grounded, right? Because you kind of have that true north and developing and growing with the company. But for you as a leader, how do you keep yourself grounded so that you're not kind of meandering and going in different directions?
I think with all of the unknown of the business, what provide me security is a very routine, you know, a really routine activities that happening in the background. Like I probably have the most boring life you could imagine in the background. Everything is on schedule. Like I go play tennis every Wednesday. I go work out at this time. I go pick up my son at this time. I wake up and I eat at this time. And that I think for me provide, that grounded feeling because every part of my life is secure except my business. And that's where I can take risks on.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a balance. I think, I am, I kid with my girlfriends, all along that, if some part of your life is boring, then you go find drama somewhere else.
Right.
And that's pretty much
That's very true.
This is it here. Like every part of my life is really boring except my business.
Well, that's
Beau,
actually
you
really
have
amazing because you're taking all the energy that you don't have to think about because everything is scheduled and operating, and then
Yep.
you can put all of that into solving the
Yep.
problems as
And
a
my
leader.
husband handle everything else in the household. I don't.
It's great. You have great insights. First of all, your honesty and transparency about your belief in yourself. While Anne said we hear things like that all the time in terms of having to grow to the next stage of the business, grow along with the next stage of the business. You don't hear many people saying, I struggle to believe in myself, but yet I know that that's there for all entrepreneurs at different times. So really appreciate that. And then also your observation about how drama finds itself if you allow space for it or not, which is also a great observation. I love that. I'm going to ask you quickly before our break, which will be in about a minute, a little bit about, I'm going to take Angie's question, but I'll let her expand on it, about your company culture. Tell us about your employee base and what that looks like and what kind of culture you're trying to build within your company.
Yeah, obviously we have a lot of company that base in Pennsylvania, New York, but our team is all over the world. We work virtually. I truly believe in flexibility and working, like people work differently and I want to give that flexibility. But the most important thing for me, and I think my team will agree with this too, and I come back to this who I am, right? I'm a problem solver and I thrive with having people who believe in solving the problem with me. And sometimes that looks differently. Sometimes that means looking outside the box. Sometimes that means never say no to the problem when it hits you. Like people look at a problem like, oh, this cannot be done, then that's the end of it. And our team doesn't do that. Every single one of us look at problem and said, maybe it could be done. Let me think about it and come back to you. That's the nature of everyone on our team. And I feel like that's what makes us work well together. Is, like we never say no. We say, how could it be done? And we decide if we're gonna tackle it or not. And so my team is full of problem solver. My team is full of passionate problem solver. And that's how we work well together.
How just very quickly, how do you find those people? I mean, how do you discover if somebody up front is that type of person?
Frankly, I said you don't know until you start working together, but there's a passion. There is a pattern matching that for me, I have learned to identify that through just working together.
And
Like
through your experiences and knowing yourself, it sounds like too. Like
yeah, and anyone who we work with, we usually engage in, 30, 60, 90 days period of just trying out, of working together.
Mm-hmm.
If it fits, like I almost say after their personality of being a problem solver, there's some, other personality matching that you have to do also. But I feel like that's number one. If you can't be a problem solver, if you say no to a problem, even before you take a look at it, I don't think you fit well within our organization.
That's great. That's a great insight, and it's great. You know exactly who you're looking for, so that's wonderful. With that, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in 60 seconds.
Silencer Devices has created a radically better noise-canceling technology. Unlike the commonly used technology, which was introduced to the market over 40 years ago, Silencer Devices can suppress both repetitive, cyclical sounds like engine noise and dynamic sounds like horns beeping or even music playing. As importantly, Silencer Devices technology is effective across the entire audio spectrum and beyond. That means their noise-canceling technology can help with both the plain engine noise and the crying baby sitting behind you to street noise and more. In addition, it has extremely low latency and requires very little runtime memory or computing power, which makes it suitable for portable devices like earbuds and mobile phones. The time is now to be among the first to bring this globally patented technology to market and take the market share you deserve. Visit silencerdevices.com to learn more about the future of noise canceling.
We are back on Founders Forum. Beau, we just had a commercial about the future. So it's a great way to ask you about your future vision. And I know you chose to talk about your 3-year vision, and I know there's several aspects to that. Tell us about if this were, we're in the winter of 2024, and if this were the winter of 2027, and the 3 of us are sitting here again together, what would have to happen in your life, personally, professionally, for you to feel that was a successful period, 3-year period in your life?
I mean, from a business perspective, we are growing quickly, tremendously, in US and also North America right now. And we are currently in conversation with partners who would allow for international expansion for AmorSui and our company. And so specifically, I can see our product being used widely in Europe, Middle East, and China, and a big team to support that. I think that's a really next step for us in terms of this growth. And, at that point, I'd probably be growing personally too.
Right.
Yeah. So I think
You
that's
also
what I
mentioned
see. Yeah, I see our company in 3 years.
You also mentioned to me that your life is changing as a mom, and that was important to you over the next 3 years. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have a son that will turn 2 in 2 weeks here. Yeah, and I think being a parent and having a son really changed my perspective on I think what is important to me. And a piece of that, I really truly grateful for the opportunity to be an entrepreneur, to follow the things I care about, to work on the things I believe in every day, to be a problem solver every day. But at the same time, majority of my time outside work, which I share is boring, it's just with family. But that's what I value the most. If that means going to the zoo every 2 weeks, or like going to the playground every evening. I mean, that's a part where I values the most about life.
So balance sounds like part of the equation for your future success.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So given that, and given the the major growth that you're looking for over the next 3 years, what kind of challenges might you have? What might you face in regard to that vision, along with the balance in your life? What challenges in regard to that as well?
Yeah, I think the next step, which I'm working on right now with everyone in the company, is to delegate the work better. I think we just getting past, a point in a company where I cannot be everything for the company. I think that's so hard as a founder and as someone who see it from 0 and is getting to a 1. And then once you get into a 1, you need to start handing off things. And I think the most important thing I could be in a company right now is to be a visionary, to be a strategic thinker, and not a problem solver, or a doer for everything.
Well,
Yeah.
Dan Sullivan, was where I took that 3-year question from. So there's a book called The Dan Sullivan Question. He asked that question. And one of the things he says for entrepreneurs is focus on your unique abilities and delegate the rest. And that's really what you're talking about. You're a problem solver. You need to focus only on that. And let
it's
everyone
easy to
else
say, but it's actually really hard to do. It's really hard to implement. It's really hard to implement effectively. And this is what my team and I are currently working together. We talk about it on a daily basis, how can I take things off Beau's plate?
Yep.
So
that's wonderful. That's right. It sounds like right where you should be, and we've all been there as entrepreneurs. It's let go. So
if we're gonna be a global company, I cannot be doing everything for sure.
I think you're bringing up another great point too, Beau, is that, while the advances in technologies are very helpful for us to maybe do more in less time and all of that, but even with technology, if the mindset and the company's processes are not built around that delegation and, effectively differentiating the tasks and the work between different people and leveraging all of their unique abilities, I've been inside corporations for over 30 years, and it's amazing to see the hierarchy where people say, no, I can't do that because I'm not, at that level, versus they may be a junior person, but that's their unique ability. So you having that vision to know this, to figure out how to delegate that, and in that way, I think is a huge part of helping you reach your 3-year, company vision.
Beau, as I promised, our 28 minutes goes quickly on the show, and so we're almost finished.
Sure is.
One last question for you, which is, if you're giving advice to your younger self, what advice, looking back, would you give you?
I mean, I'm gonna bring it, to a close loop. I think I would just tell myself to believe in myself, right? What I don't know today doesn't mean that I don't know, like I have the capability to figure it out when it happens. And if I don't figure out, then I learn how to figure it out in the future.
So part of it is, as Anne started today, it's be you, right? And
just believe that you have within yourself to figure out whatever it is that's going to happen, and you're going to move past it. Yeah.
Beau, it's been delightful to have you here today. You have a great story and you have a great company, and I think there's great things ahead for your company. So we appreciate you being here today on Founders Forum. And for everyone listening, we look forward to seeing you or hearing you, or you hearing us again next week. Have a great day.